Hi guys, and welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. So today guys, Bachoosh, Traitor's Blade by Sebastien De Castell, book 1 of the Greatcoats. And guys, I don't even know how to talk about this book. I've seen a lot of people have been reading this book recently because there's a read-along over at Mike's Book Reviews in his Discord. So I've been watching a lot of reviews of these things, and I'm not sure anybody likes this book as much as I like this book. So many things about this book hit exactly the right notes with me. And I don't know what it is, but I love this book. I'm not sure if this thing's gonna topple Senlin, but it may. I love this book. So, without any more fiddle-faddle, let me just talk about it. So the Greatcoats are this organization of traveling magistrates. There were 144 of them formed or reformed under the old king, King Palus, in this country named Tristia, which is organized into 9 duchies, each one run by a duke, and then you have Castle Aramor, which is where the king lived. And he resurrected the Greatcoats because the dukes are super corrupt and they tax the land and they're just huge douchebags. And so the Greatcoats were created to bring justice to the people. So they train to duel so that they can kind of enforce the king's law. They go from town to town and they settle disputes. So let's say that 2 people in a town, let's say there's a jeweler and then there's this noble who doesn't want to pay the jeweler but like ordered some jewelry, and he got the jewelry but never actually paid, and he's a noble. What's the jeweler gonna do anything? Well, the jeweler then pleads to the Greatcoats. They come and they officiate. They hear both sides and then they sing the verdict. And I know that sounds really weird, but the king wanted it this way because it's brilliant. The commoners, and I really like worlds that do this, where commoners aren't philosophers. Like they're just common people who just want to farm. They're not geniuses, and most of them can't even read. So the commoners cannot read or write really, and there's no way they don't know the king's law, first of all, and if they do, they're not going to remember the law that's quoted and which one it is, nor are they going to remember the verdict. So it is sung so that it sticks in their head. It's actually sung to barroom tunes that they already know. So imagine if someone disputed, you took someone, let's say you went to Judge Judy and you sued someone.
You speak, I rule, and then you shut up.
And instead of just telling you the verdict, Judge Judy sang the verdict to you to the tune of 99 bottles of beer on the wall. Everyone knows that tune, and you're gonna remember, like, oh, I just want a large sum of money, I just want a ton from you, or whatever it is. And he does this so that people will remember this decision as the years go on. And they're called Greatcoats because they have these leather coats, which are awesome, that are lined with like this flexible bone plate inside, or like on the interior of the fabric, and inside the cloak is really soft and thick to keep them warm. It keeps them from freezing during the winter months, and there's like hundreds of different pockets in there. If you've ever played D&D and there's like the robe of many pockets, it's things like that. There's like hundreds of pockets sewn inside where they keep pills or alchemical things or like slips of paper. Anything they need to squirrel away is in there. The cuffs of the Greatcoats can be pulled over their fists in case they have to fight, so they can like deflect sword blows. And it's just, I love freaking awesome costumes. As I said in my Howl video when I talked about getting this book, awesome like outfits that do these incredible things. I want to be a Greatcoat so bad. And the Greatcoats are allied to no one except the king, and this angers the dukes. And so at the start of this, it has been 5 years since the dukes, who can't agree on anything because none of them want anybody else to get any power, they agreed on one thing, and that was the king was overstepping his boundaries, activating the Greatcoats and trying to enforce all of these laws on them. So they allied and they executed the king. They executed the king, and the Greatcoats were scattered to the 4 winds in disgrace, and that's where we pick up. We pick up with 3 of the Greatcoats, Falcio, Brasti, and Kest. And Falcio is the leader. He is the first cantor, meaning he was the leader of the Greatcoats when they were formed under the king. He's the chief singer, if you will. And so he's the tactician one. He's the charismatic one. Brasti is excellent with a bow. He's like awesome with his bow, but he is the handsome, runs his mouth a lot, like kind of stupid one. And then you have Kest, who is humorless and doesn't joke and is very super serious and always answers rhetorical questions. Like Falcio will be like, what do you think the chances of us surviving are? And he's like, well, not good for you guys. I'll probably survive, but we'll kill most of them, but you'll die of poison. Brasti will be shot in the face. I'll live. And these guys, these characters make this book so enjoyable. They are so fantastic together. De Castell writes these guys together, and it is as if they have been friends for their entire lives. It leaps off the page. They have that kind of easy familiarity with each other. I laughed out loud no less than 5 times reading this book. And this is a super serious book. People describe this as kind of a grimdark Three Musketeers. I don't really agree with that. The Three Musketeers is obvious because they mostly use rapiers and they were trained to fight like that. They're just so funny with each other. It's just hard to describe. It's not. You just have to read it for themselves. All 3 of them are hilarious. And they're trained in dueling because obviously when they make these, like, when they rule and it doesn't go well for the Duke, they have to, like, challenge the Duke's champion, you know, to a duel. And so they're trained in dueling, not in large-scale fighting. And there are a lot of fight scenes in this book. You guys have to understand, there's a lot of fighting in this book. Tons of duels, tons of battles, and it's written really well. De Castell has definitely taken a fencing class and fought with a rapier. He has to. With how in-depth it is, with where the point of the rapier is going, if you don't like really descriptive battles like that, be careful. There's a lot of that in here. But reading it, it is so just gripping and real with what's happening. It's almost 3 books in one. So we have the first third, which is we meet the Greatcoats, and they've been disgraced. Their employer is killed, and they're hired on as caravan guards. And we see just how much everyone hates the Greatcoats. Everyone hates them. No one's nice to them. Everyone calls them Traitor, which means tattercloak, which I just really liked, but frickin' Falcio hates it. He hates it.
They hate you from the bottom of your hooves to the top of your pitchfork. They hate you, dear God, they hate you good.
And then the middle third is, it's like the Three Musketeers meets the Purge.
Please just let us purge.
And that's all I can say about it. It's just terrifying and dark and pulse pounding. Falcio is a lodestone for misfortune. If something bad can go wrong, it will. And De Castell is not afraid to go for it. Dark things happen and bad things happen, and it is completely unexpected. And I really like that because you never know if someone is safe when something is happening. Compare this with books where you know nothing's gonna happen to the main character. They're gonna be fine. It's nothing, like they may be injured or hurt, and they're not gonna die. This is not that kind of book. You are constantly in fear of what is going to happen. This is a brutal world with a lot of gut punches. And so this is first person, which I don't normally like, but I love Falcio's voice. Anytime they're in a battle also, he switches to second person as if he's talking to us, instructing us on the use of his rapier or the use of these various tools he's using. It's a really good way to get in exposition without it feeling like an info dump. He's like, okay, so here's what I'm doing. This is why I'm using this thing. And I really like that. This world doesn't pull any punches, as I said, and it goes back and forth between the present, and then we learn about Falcio's past, kind of like jumping from chapter to chapter. Those past chapters are really good studies in short story writing. They are really powerful, self-contained vignettes that if I only read that chapter and nothing else, I would feel like I read a satisfying short story. Chapter 2, especially, it's like 6 pages, but the ending of that chapter, I was just like, oh my gosh. And I read it to my wife, and my wife was like, like it's just chilling. And so a lot of these vignettes are like that, and they're just really, really well written. I love the way he writes these flashbacks. So part of the reason that I think I love this book so much is because of Falchio's life is made considerably harder by his adherence to his sense of justice and his allegiance to the dead king. So the king had his greatcoats, but the dukes have knights. And Falchio is constantly making this distinction between honor and justice. The knights have honor, and the greatcoats have justice. And honor is obeying your lord blindly, even if they ask you to do something that is dishonorable. You are being honorable by following your lord. That's what honor is to the knights. But Falchio is all about doing what the law requires. He's not an assassin. He, even above his compatriots, doesn't let them kill unarmed people, even when it's in their best interest to do so. Even when they have the opportunity. If you don't kill that guy right now, you are going to pay for it later. 100%. In fact, someone may die because you did not kill that guy right now. He will not do it because that's just not justice. That's not what the dead king would have wanted him to do. And we only see King Palis through flashbacks, and I love him. Probably my favorite monarch in any book. I don't know how De Castell wrote this amazing monarch just through flashback, and his relationship with Falchio is just incredible. I love it. But Falchio has this just strong sense of justice, and he can't let it go. He can't let it go. He is constantly just frustrated and just enraged and upset by how unfair the world is and how unfair the dukes and their like are to the townspeople. And that's why he loved the king so much, because he really truly believed, whether it's true or not, he really believed that the king wanted to make the world a more fair place for the common man. And I really, really relate to this. So I have Asperger's, and part of what that means is that there are certain things that I can't let go, that I don't understand, and I don't process things that I don't understand very well. And I also latch on to things and get really fired up about certain subjects. And one of those things is justice. I have, a justice core or a justice bone that I cannot get rid of. I can't let it go. I cannot tolerate the abuse of power by the people at the top. I cannot tolerate people who abuse a power and authority to take advantage of people without that power and authority. I can't take it. It is part of what makes me exhausted. It is part of why I cannot watch politics anymore. It's why I just can't. It is very, very frustrating to me when I see that, because people don't have to be that. You don't have to be corrupt. You don't have to abuse your power, but people do anyway because we are selfish and brutish, and we're everything Thomas Hobbes said we were. And so for a character to really stick to his guns, and even, like I said, even when it's deadly for him not to, he sticks to it because he has that justice bone. So I admire Falchio. I wish I was Falchio. He's so awesome. And so Falchio, as the first cantor and as the head of the Greatcoats, there is one scene in particular there is a rousing speech. Alex Nieves talked about this in his video, in his review of this, and when I got to that part, I was like, this has to be what he was talking about. This speech was so good, and you can argue about, can someone in that situation stand there and talk for that long without anything happening? That's fine. But this speech was so amazing. I cheered audibly when it was over. Like, it was just so good. I love inspirational sports movies, guys. I've never been sportsing. I'm not good at them, but I love inspirational sports movies. And so it just reminded me of the speeches from some of my favorite inspirational movies.
You call this game fair, or I'll go to the papers. I don't care if I go down with you. But before God, I swear I'll see every last one of you thrown in jail.
You dig your own grave.
Defense! On me! Come on! All right. Now, I don't want them to gain another yard. You blitz all night! And if they cross the line of scrimmage, I'm gonna take every last one of you out. You make sure they remember forever the night they played the Titans.
It's just so good. No man breaks the rock, y'all. I cheered audibly. And if you've ever had that experience in a book, I know that we've all had the no. It was like the opposite of that. Instead of no, you're like, yes. It was so good and so moving. I had chills. It was so great. Like, De Castell can write a nail-biting scene. He can write dialogue. He can write these inspirational things. And that is really where Falkio, like, Brasti has his bow. Kest is the greatest of the swordsmen. He's the best fighter of them. But Falkio has the charisma. His danger, and really the danger of the Greatcoats in general, is their ability to inspire a populace that has been oppressed. And this is why the Dukes hate them so much, because with the Greatcoats come rebellion, because they're the people who can get the students to die on the barricade. Falkio is just so gifted with his words that people want to respond, and I just love watching this power that he doesn't really even believe he has, but is just so powerful. Now, I talked about the first two sections because it's really like a three-part book. The last part is a freaking roller coaster. Like, I stayed up to like 2 a.m. finishing the last 200 pages, the last 150 pages, because it was so good. It was almost too fast. I felt out of breath. It went so fast, like breakneck speed we're talking about. And so now, and with that being said, I'm going to segue into it's not a perfect book. There are definitely things that other people may not like about this book, and that I've actually kind of seen in some of the other reviews. So that last part, especially that last section, it is so fast. A lot of stuff happens very quickly, and a lot of the resolution to those things is very, very convenient. Some might say, and have, it is filled with deus ex machina, and that is true. There are a lot of deus ex machina in the last section of the book. Now, if that bothers you, if you cannot tolerate deus ex machina, you're not going to enjoy that last section of the book. There are some coincidences earlier on, but you're like, that's fine. Now, the reason that it doesn't bother me is because I don't think they're deus ex machina out of nowhere. I think that there is a reason that these deus ex machina happened, but I don't think we know them yet. And a lot of that has to do with the magic system. There is almost no magic in this book. Magic exists, and Falkio hates it. Every time there's something magic, he's like, I freaking hate magic. And there's really only 2 tiny uses of it. One is being able to locate somebody, and one is like forgetful, like powder. We don't know much about the magic system at all, or about the gods or the saints, which are kind of like these embodiments of some kind of attributes. Like they always say, by Saint Cavail, who cuts through water. That's his full name. So we don't really know a ton about that. And some of the stuff is so convenient and so deus ex machina that I cannot believe that the author is not aware of that. So I think that it has magic origins, and that we're going to find out in one of the later books how all that stuff happened. So that's why it doesn't bother me, but be warned that that is there. There's also a really obvious, like, plot twist, a really obvious one, that Falkio for some reason is too stupid to get. Like, people are talking about it around him, and they keep being like, you really don't know what this is about, do you? When we're like, Falkio. And it's bizarre, because he's looking for certain things. He's looking for, like hidden secrets. But then, like, when there's a secret out in the open, he completely misses it. And I'm just like, how are you not aware of what is happening, Falkio? super obvious what I'm talking about if you've read it. In addition, there is one scene in particular that I don't understand at all. It comes out of nowhere and then is gone as quick as it happens. And I don't understand this scene at all. I don't like it. It's actually the only scene in the entire book that I don't like. I don't like the scene. I don't know why it's there. I'm assuming it has more kind of ripple effect in the later books, but I don't know why it's in this book. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. In fact, if that scene was removed, I do not understand how anything would be changed in the plot at all. So there is one scene that is just like, it's just like whoop, whoop, like something, it's as if something appeared out of thin air and then vanished as quickly as it came. It's really, really weird. But despite all that, I love how it ended. I love the setup for book 2. I have already started reading book 2, breaking my TBR. That is how much I loved this book, is I immediately started reading book 2, Night's Shadow. And I've gotten some answers, and, you know, mostly not. So I love where it ended up. Now, there's a lot of questions about honor and justice. There's a lot of questions about being agents of people's will. Like, are the Greatcoats and King Palis any better than the Knights and the Dukes? Like, they are also just extensions of Palis's will. Who is to say that what Palis wants is objectively better than what the Dukes want? That's an argument that's made. I don't really understand it because the Dukes are huge douchebags, and I like King Palis, who is trying to like actually make the life better instead of taking advantage of them. The Dukes are... There are some horrible people in this book. Some just horrible people. Like, the Dukes and Duchesses are freaking terrible. I'm hoping that we see a Duke eventually that isn't just the worst human to ever grace the planet, because otherwise that's not super nuanced. So I don't like that, so I'm hoping that we will see a little bit more nuance. But the political system is intact. They talk about trade, they talk about economy. I mean, the Dukes react how you would if you have that kind of power. They're not using it in any kind of bizarre way. That power is there. That's just how it is. And they killed the king 5 years ago, so of course they're taking advantage of it. But there is still this weird honorable undercurrent to where they do kind of end up mostly adhering to the things they say. Most of them are good at their word. There's this thing they say in this book called marked, where someone says, hey, mark me, I'll do this, and someone says marked. And that's kind of like this binding thing. Once something has been marked, it's as if it can't be broken. And I do like that. There's this strange sense of honor, even among these wretched, awful human beings. So guys, that is my review of the Greatcoats. I love it so much. Their ability to inspire. They're kind of like the bards, the bard class from D&D, where in 5th edition, bards finally don't suck. They are just there to make the people around them better, especially Falkio. I love Falkio and Brasti and Cast, all 3 of them. They all feel really different. I give this, on the Kingfin approval system, I give this a superb. Maybe even a superb plus. That's how much I like this book. So superb to superb plus. I just don't want to give it a superb plus and then have the other ones be even better. Oh, I do have the superb plus plus. So I'll give this a superb plus. I loved this book. Out of 5 stars, I give it 5 stars. I give it 5 stars. I love this book so much. Now, because of some of the things I mentioned, I don't think that everybody I recommend to read this book is going to like it as much as I did. But like I said, it hits on things that are uniquely relevant to me and my tastes for things. If you haven't read this book, please consider picking it up. I'm sad that my September TBR is so clogged. I probably won't be able to read Saint's Blood, the 3rd book, until October, but that's fine. I'll get through them. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to be in a really good science fiction fantasy book club, come on and join Shelf Space. We have an awesome Discord. This is a book club run by Jessie May over at Jessie May Books. Our book that we're going to be reading in the month of September is Rage of Dragons. So come and join us, say hi if you want to. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Well done, Mr. Blythe. Thank you. You may be seated. Shutruknahunti. Is anyone familiar with this fellow? Texts are permissible, but you won't find it there. Shutruknahunti, king, sovereign of the land of Elam, destroyer of Sipar. Behold, his accomplishments cannot be found in any history book. Why? Because great ambition and conquest without contribution is without significance.